startup ecosystem. In today's India, conversations about progress and innovation are incomplete without addressing the rise of startups. The entrepreneurial mindset of our youth is driving transformation across industries, shaping a future where disruption and innovation lead the way. India now boasts over 110 unicorn startups with a combined valuation surpassing US $350 billion. These numbers are not just statistics. They are the result of bold visionaries pushing boundaries, challenging the status quo, and creating impactful solutions that resonate globally.
In 2024, venture capital funding in India continues to grow, with over 10.5 billion US dollars raised in the first 9 months alone, marking a significant 30% jump from 2023. This shows the resilience of Indian startups, even in uncertain global economic conditions. With the next panel, we hope to tap into this very promise by bringing together 3 trailblazers who are at the forefront of this movement. We are honored to have Mr. Apurva Chamaria, Mr. Ravi Ramachandran, and Mr. Bharat Sethi with us. Mr. Chamaria is the head of venture capital and startups at Google India. In this role, he has been instrumental in nurturing India's vibrant startup ecosystem. Prior to this, he was the senior vice president and chief of staff to the CEO and MD at Tech Mahindra, where he worked closely with leadership to drive strategic initiatives. Mr. Chamaria is a fellow of the All India Management Association and a sought-after speaker at industry events and premier B schools across the country. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Chamaria to the stage to share his valuable insights.
Next, we have Mr. Bharat Sethi, the founder and CEO of Rage Coffee. Bharat is redefining India's FMCG landscape with innovation at the core of his business. His journey from an idea to a thriving brand exemplifies the spirit of resilience in the startup world. Mr. Bharat Sethi has revolutionized India's coffee culture with his innovative plant-based formulations and direct-to-consumer model. Under his leadership, Rage Coffee has skyrocketed to become one of India's fastest-growing FMCG brands, attracting star investor Virat Kohli and captivating a new generation of coffee enthusiasts. Recognized for his entrepreneurial excellence, Mr. Bharat was honored with the prestigious Yuva Ratna Award by the President of India in 2022. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Bharat Sethi to share his inspiring journey and insights with us today.
Next, we have Mr. Ravi Ramachandran, co-founder and CEO of NUA, who is revolutionizing women's wellness with personalized, community-driven solutions. His work demonstrates how startups can create meaningful impact at a deeply personal level. After gaining extensive experience in corporate roles, including ITC and Strategy he transitioned into entrepreneurship. In 2016, Mr. Ramachandran co-founded NUA with a mission to address women's wellness needs through innovative solutions. NUA began with customizable sanitary pads, but expanded to offer a wide range of products like self-heating cramp relief patches and intimate care products, all co-created with their community of over 10 lakh women. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Ramachandran to the stage.
Moderating this exciting session is Professor Vishal Karungulam, a visionary in the fields of technology and education. Professor Vishal is a clinical assistant professor at the Indian School of Business, blending academia with industry expertise. With a wealth of experience from leading product teams at Google India and spearheading impactful projects at Microsoft, including Azure and Xbox, he is known for driving innovation in the tech world. As someone who takes his class, I'm delighted to tell you that he's one of the few educators who ensures that you leave every class a little bit wiser and a lot more inspired. I request everyone to join me in giving our panelists and our moderator a very warm welcome.
Yes, all right, so we'll get started. So we'll try to keep this interactive, okay? So I've been to a lot of panel discussions myself, and it's very boring when 4 people on stage keep talking. So what's important is all of you also participate as much as possible, and we'll pull you in. We'll pull you in so that you can weigh in, you can ask questions. We'll make sure it's meaningful for all of you. That's kind of how we'll do this, okay? So what we'll do is, just to kind of get warmed up and get started, maybe I'll have all of you do one quick round of intro, We know about your products, we know about you, but what we're looking for, or what will be interesting, is for you to tell us one story of one of your super failures. What didn't really work for you? One failure that you've encountered, and what is it that came out of it that helped you learn something new? So why don't we start on that note? Is that okay? Does that work? Did I throw you off? First one.
Think now.
Think about it. Think about it. Whoever wants to go first. So your stories are all inspiring, but I'm sure it came with a lot of cost.
Does it have to be of this
Any
startup?
story. Any story.
I can go well.
Yeah, go ahead, please. I think they can. Go ahead.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes. All right, great.
So, I used to run a travel tech startup, and pre-COVID, we were of course doing very well, and we decided to create software for small independent hotels. And if you look at the total organized hotel ecosystem in the world, it's about 500,000 hotels. So Hiltons, Hyatts, Sheratons. The unorganized market is far bigger. The unorganized market is anywhere between 4.5 to 5 million hotels. And when you are building, you're so in love with your idea that you think that all the consumers and customers will fall in love with it, and the world will come running to you for your products. And we launched with a great degree of fanfare, not realizing that small hotels, independent hotels, mom and pop hotels still need a lot of hand-holding. And it was just an incredible lesson in humility that tech can solve a lot of problems, but there are some which will still require human assistance.
Wonderful. I think it's a very important lesson. Hold on to that. I'll come back to it in a second. Yes, please.
I don't know, like, I fail on a daily basis, so like,
It's wonderful.
Which failure would be like the bigger one to tell you? I don't know.
It's a rich life, no? Failing every day. It's a rich life.
Yeah, maybe a failed product launch.
Yeah.
That kind of hits you.
Why not? Why not?
A failed partnership that doesn't work out.
Whatever works for you.
I don't know, like. So I'll tell you one story which super has been a failure, which has taught me the most recently. We partnered with a super stockist in our business, maybe CFA super stockist, somebody who takes your products and then distributes it basis certain agreements and so on and so forth. And that partnership went down south because we wanted to change some of the terms at the time of a renewal. And it went to a point where we, couldn't solve the challenges that we were facing. And they were all, ego, I would say, human emotion related challenges. So I think what has been some of my most critical learnings over the last 12 years, starting up very early and then building, has been that people, if you solve for the complexity of humans somehow and your relationships with them, you can build largish companies and you can have very large outcomes. So that relationship was then resolved, the partnership was resolved simply because of a lot of negotiation and warfare mindset kind of a solution. So I think that that was a larger problem to solve. So smaller problems need hard work and dedication and all of those diligence and all of that. But I think very large problems that any business or any professional will face would be very human related. So like human emotion related. So if you can solve for that very tactically and strategically, and if you read quite a lot of psychology, you can do very well in business. And I think that has been some of my very strong learnings recently in the last couple of years.
Wonderful, wonderful. No, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
I think same like Bharat, I have a lot of failures, but sitting here in ISB, I think I can, I think something that comes back to me was somewhat, maybe almost 20 years ago, I applied to ISB, right? And I didn't get admitted. And this is like 2004, I applied. I think this was year 2 or 3 of ISB in
very
operation,
good, yes.
yeah. I got through to the interview. I thought I did a spectacular interview, but I didn't get admitted. I used to work for a company called ITC. It was, a good place to work in. Usually, the track record of people getting good admits in ISB from ITC was very high. I think the fundamental reason for that and the biggest learning was that I actually thought, I almost took it for granted I'll get admitted, right? New school, it's not, it's highly reputed today, but those days it was still new. And I thought, with an ITC tag and all of that, I'll just walk in. So I didn't do much preparation. I went in for this interview. I don't know if it still happens. I was asked a guesstimate question by, I think, the director of admissions, Mr. Menon, I remember, So he asked me this question, and I had no idea how to answer a guesstimate. Though I was, an engineering grad, should have come quite naturally. Obviously, the next year, I was like with a mission, I have to get admitted, right? And then I definitely prepared better, and I did get the admit next year. I chose not to join for other reasons. But I think the biggest learning in this is that nothing in life you can take for granted. And 2 is nothing trumps preparation. Because the next year, what I did was I just, I would walk from, in a cab going from home to office and back. I would actually pick up a topic and do a guesstimate in my head, right? And that really helped. So that's kind of my learning.
No, wonderful. Thank you so much. That's a great lesson. I just wanted to kind of get a sense of who you are as people, before we start talking. So this kind of helps break the ice a little bit. But getting into some little bit more technical nuances. So one of the things that I was sourcing some questions from our students as well, like what would they want to talk to you about. One of the things that came about was this whole thing about when you're building a 0 to 1 startup, like a bunch of you have done, and you've actually invested in a lot of companies, started up on your own. The question that keeps coming up is, how do people make decisions on whether to invest in a startup or not? So how do investors make this decision? And it's interesting, like I'm obviously going to come to you first, but I'd like your perspective also on this. And I have a very specific question. How much of this investment decision making is science? How much of it is gut feel? How much of it is the person? How much of it is the idea? What is this? If you can just help us demystify a little bit. And then I'll have both of them corroborate whether you're right or wrong. Because they've raised money.
So I think it depends on what asset class are you investing in. Real estate investing works very differently from public market to growth stage, to early stage, to something like art or wine, to antiques. Many of those are definitely not my area of expertise. So I can tell you a little bit about my experiences at early stage. At early stage, we often, in India, and again globally markets work differently, we over-index on founder. In many businesses, when you first invest in a venture which is day -1, day 0, day -1 is when the founder is just exiting a company, is a second-time founder, or is a CXO now starting a business, or is a business school graduate. They don't even have a co-founder or a completely built-out thesis. That's day -1. So we are basically looking at a couple of things. In countries like India, most market pools, profit pools are large. Or even if you start with a small market, you can build around adjacencies. So per se, we are not worried about the TAM, and what we are looking for is the founder analytical? Is he or she a talent magnet? Can they build world-class teams? That's going to be the single most important job of the founder. Can they think through problems at a minutiae level? And the framework which at least I use is, do they have IQ and EQ are well known. What we over-index on is OQ and PQ.
Interesting.
So operations quotient, can they just get stuff done? very important, right? You have to be a momentum driver as a founder. You have to be someone who drives velocity and passion quotient. Founder lives are hard. You could start your morning thinking that you're king of the world. By afternoon, something happens. A key distributor walks out. A competitor launches in your category. So how do you keep it going? And your passion has to consistently be in. And early stage is all about energy transfer, one way from the founder to the team, non-stop, 24/7. So that's what we are looking at.
Wonderful, very nicely said. No, thank you so much for sharing. As folks who've raised funds, what do you think of the assessment? Do you agree, disagree?
See, so I've also been a very avid angel investor. I've invested in over 35 odd companies and I continue to invest. I think what of course you mentioned, it's very, very critical. Most institutional capital which is managed money, let's say, goes like this. I have a different, not different, but maybe just very simple.
Yeah.
It's very less complicated for me when I do invest. Institutions have a very different way, theme, idea of investing. They're playing with somebody else's capital. They have certain checklists and certain rule books they will need to follow. Market size, founder credibility, just the idea, the revenue models, the business models, all of those are very important. In fact, in India, a lot of them are also at the seed stage looking for all of these. In India, pre-seed checks are rare, far few, doesn't happen as much. When I look to invest in any young or any founder of any nature, I look for PhDs. I look for if you heard the really poor, hungry, and driven people.
Yeah.
So I think for me, what has worked out is the hunger. If there is hunger in the founders, so I'm 90% of the bet is only on the founders. If I like them, if I meet with them, if I sit with them, if I can think I can do it for the next 2-3 years, whenever they need me, and most of my investments have been just because the person was great. Because everything will change.
Everything will change.
Everything will change. Whatever you're doing, your teams will leave you, your vendors will leave you, your markets will change. There will be a macro shift that will change everything. So you cannot predict all of that. And great companies are built over a decade or so, right? So
True.
you need to go through all of those chains and churns in the market, changes in the market. So yeah, the founders, because I've been there, I've also, if I put myself in the shoes of the founder, can I just empathize with them a little bit?
Yeah.
And feel, and the other would be maybe 10% would be the market. So I like to I have a certain thesis on the category. If it's a great founder, but I don't think that the market is right for me to have any kind of prediction on it or any kind of evaluation on it, then I would just simply skip that deal. But yeah, these two things primarily.
Awesome, super helpful. Thank you so much again. Sir.
I'm not an investor, so I have not much of an idea how.
Maybe you can give us the other side perspective.
I tend to agree with both of them. See, especially for an early stage kind of an investment, like as Bharat mentioned, I think it takes several years to build something, right? And what you need is some level of perseverance and grit. And like you said, everything changes. Things go through a lot of churn. There are great moments in businesses, but most moments are shit. It's actually pretty tough, right? So if I were to put money, behind an idea or something, I would definitely look for this attribute, whether the founder and the founding team, do they have staying power, for 7 to 10 years, and as things evolve, are they flexible, perseverant? I think that's what I would look for. Yeah.
No, wonderful. Staying power. I like that. Awesome. Great. No, thank you so much for sharing. This is super useful because it's something that a lot of students always want to know, right? So how does this whole thing work, like raising funds, who invests, why do they invest? So these kind of questions. So this is super helpful. We'll kind of switch gears.
Also one more thing I'll just mention.
Yeah, please.
early stage founders need to dazzle. They need to have this power to sit with an investor, which I have, kind of seen to be the biggest differentiator for an investor who's not interested in the category, who's not interested in the whatever, like any of it, but still chooses to invest because they spend that 30, 60, 1 hour, 2 hours with the founders or maybe even over a period of time, and they're like, wow, this person knows what they're talking about. They have all the backup data and proof of this concept working.
Right.
And I don't know as much as this person knows, and hence I will just believe in what they're saying.
Right.
You need to just dazzle and baffle them with your confidence and with your ability to execute what you are, saying.
Fair enough. Do you want to say something?
No, I'm good.
No, go ahead. Why don't you say it? I do want to make sure that I clarify what you meant a little bit, okay? So, people tend to take the word dazzle as saying just being able to speak your thing out. But I think what you're saying is a little more nuanced, saying you should be able to express it meaningfully only because you're backed with expertise of some kind to actually get that done. I think that's what you're meaning, right?
Yeah.
It's a little more than just saying it.
Of course, I mean, a good investor will see through it.
Yeah.
Just saying will never just help. But you just need to be so much detailed and intricate about your business, your market, your consumer, whoever you're selling to. There will be things that as an investor we might not know. There will be so many things we might not know about what you're doing. So I think dazzle is a combination in my mind at least of everything that just impresses. There's market and there's the understanding of the competition, the understanding of the pricing, the dynamics of how this market will be in 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. How are you able to predict all of that? How will you stay relevant for that long and so on and so forth? So I think passionate founders, as Apurva also mentioned, right, they will be able to be really, for the lack of a better word, they will be just very consumed by building this business. So
Fair enough. Detail oriented. Yes, sir.
I'd like to add for the benefit of the team, and I
Please.
agree with him, but I think the benefit of the students here, I think different investors see different meaning in this dazzle.
Yeah,
right?
Very nice. Yes.
So I have gone to guys, to funds or to folks, and they've never returned my call after the first ever meeting, because certainly nothing, probably there was no connect. But there are guys who've invested and who've continued to stay with me, right? Even if they could have got an exit, they've stayed put. And I think you'll just, all the other things that was mentioned, perseverance, or whether the depth or clarity of what you want to build, the vision, all of that put together, you will find a match. So I actually think for everyone here, I think at least my learning is that don't lose your individuality in the process of raising money.
Yeah.
Be who you are, be confident. You will find, if your business idea and if your commitment towards that is good, find somebody. It may not be a spectacular blue chip fund or something, but you just need money, right? After all. Yeah.
No, this is important, and I think it's important to deconstruct this a little bit, because what I don't want people to go out with this, the notion that saying, if I'm an expert presenter and I can tell a great story, I can dazzle. I think there's a lot more to it, right? So you're talking about passion truly coming out because you care about the problem and you're staying true to who you are. You're also talking about being in the details.
I think what I meant was also pre-seed. I'm not talking about when you're pre-seed, when you do not have a lot of data, when you are really like early stage, I think a lot of it is just conviction, and that gets through the communication. It doesn't mean you need to have the best English or the best jargon in the world.
Fair enough.
It will be something that if I was talking about coffee 6 years back, I would possibly be able to speak for 6 hours.
Because you care.
With non-stop. Because I care too much about what I'm solving for. And when I say talk too much, I wouldn't blabber. So you need to know what you're saying, what you're doing. But anything like pre-revenue, early stage, even early revenues, a lot of it is riding on how convinced the founding team is. And that can come through an email, which can be very important. That can come through a business model like a data presentation,
Yeah.
or that can come through phone calls or just people talking to each other and saying that this guy or this girl is just super, let's just invest.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. No, thank you so much for sharing. This is super useful, by the way. This is really great.
I wanted to add one more.
Please, please.
Usually, most investors would get, if you're running a fund, between 20, 30 inbounds a day. You would love to, but you typically, it's very hard to connect with everyone. So what investors are also looking for is a warm intro.
Yeah.
So the outreach is also important.
Yeah.
If you are coming through a portfolio company, your chances of getting a hearing and a serious listening, founder market fit is also very important. See, the market has become very competitive. When you were starting 10 years ago, there weren't enough founders or enough investors. In India now, about 8,000 startups are created a year. So it's a very competitive market. So if you're a founder with zero founder market fit, coming in cold, your chances, of course, deteriorate.
Fair enough. No, these are all fascinating concepts, and we'll go into it a little bit deeper. But this is super useful. Thank you so much for the framework, if not anything else. And in keeping with our theme for the summit itself and for what this panel discussion is, I'll shift a little bit. And I'll try to go into your individual examples. And one of the things that we're trying to understand is this whole disruption business. Right? So it's lead, disrupt, and then you're able to thrive kind of thing. Disruption is a fascinating subject for me. I mean, I've done a lot of work in that area. I read a lot about it. One of my favorite professors who came up with the theory of disruptive innovation is an area I do a lot of work on. So in that lieu, like I want maybe start with Rage Coffee first. Do you think Rage is a disruptive company? And if yes, why do you think you're disruptive, and what are you disrupting, you feel?
In my mind, yes. So disruption is subtle. I think disruption, the word disruption is in businesses sometimes taken out of context a lot. Disruption's real impact is seen over a period of time. Whatever you're trying to do, just I think creating a solid revenue model or building on top of a very new kind of a business model, I don't think that's very disruptive unless it's executed and the impact can be measured over some period of years. In our business, in consumer business, I think the biggest disruption comes from two things. The Honorable CM also mentioned it, which to me is the most important thing and the most fascinating thing in business, which is courage. The courage to go up against the legacy players in a market that is extremely competitive, and yet be able to create such a unique and I would say relevant position for yourself in a country where consumerism is still like very early. I think it is the most difficult thing to do. That's courage. That's execution and all of that that's a high level of risk that one needs to take. So the point is that disruption first of all starts in the minds of the founders. Do they have the courage to step in the market to change the paradigm of how consumers are consuming in this country? What really matters to me is in a decade's time, can Rage or any other company, let's say for any founder, can they see that product in every household? That's for me is disruption. It changes a lot. Can we stand up to some of the norms of the industry and challenge those norms? So I think a lot of it is still yet to be proven. I think in my mind India has been able to produce very less disruptive companies so far. A lot of them are now coming. There's a 10, 15-year cycle of great companies being funded, being driven by fantastic founders, building impact, having impact at all the levels.
Right.
So I feel like that's the thing. Courage is where it starts, and if you're lucky, and if you really, really have the staying power, in 15 years, 10, 15 years, you will land up doing something disruptive.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we'll talk about Noah a little bit. I think it echoes a lot of things that he's been speaking about, right? So we'd love to kind of listen to your 0 to 1 journey a little bit in this whole, I mean, it's a niche but very critical space, you know, what you're operating in. So how did that pan out, right? In some sense, you are disrupting the industry. So how exactly did you go about doing it and what actually happened?
Yeah. I don't think it's niche. I think half the population goes through this. So it's not niche at all.
Fair enough.
Obviously, the market is still underpenetrated. Like unlike most other FMCG categories, this is sub 30% penetration. Like a soap will be like 100%.
I fully stand corrected. It's a sub-penetrated market, but a very critical market.
Yes, absolutely. Right. So I think it is important. I don't think I started Noah thinking about disruption or anything like that because it's too small to think about all of that stuff. We don't have the resources to really go and, at least I didn't think about, let me disrupt something. I think all of us, I think, and Apurva will also be able to say that most of the founders invest behind. There's some problem you're trying to solve, that's for sure, right? So if you're, and in a consumer brand, most of that problem centers around the consumer, right? So for me, the starting point was this number 60,000 hours. Anyone, any guesses what is 60,000 hours? So in our context, 60,000 hours is the number of hours a girl goes through periods in her life. That's a lot of time, right? And you know, every ad that you see in the market and stuff, it talks about a product and all of that, but a girl actually goes through a lot more during that time. Maybe India was still evolving or whatever, so we have some of the best consumer brands in the world operating in this space, right? But there was a certain narrative that was going on. So we said, look, if a girl goes through something over 60,000 hours, but no one's really talking about some of the deeper problems they're going through, can we as a brand do that, right? So it was, I would say, not a disruption, but a change in narrative, right? And when we fixed our minds towards changing that narrative, then we realized what are the products or solutions that we need to come out with, right? So I think that's the starting point for us. That is 0 point for us. 0 to 1 journey is, I don't know, too many things. You need a good team to help you and believe in. And this whole founder conviction is important because it's difficult to hire your first set of people. Because you have nothing to really show. With actually nothing to show, you have to also go raise money and hire some good people to. So I think that part plays out well. But then 0 to 1 is about really getting out there, translating this dream or a vision into smaller starting points, and and be at it. And you learn, you'll fail, you'll learn, and then keep building over that, over a period of time. So.
No, it's fascinating, especially as you're going about building a new narrative, right? You're building a new brand, you're building a new narrative. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe like 2-3 lessons that you've gathered along the way which are helping you today?
Yeah, so I think number 1 for me is continuing to engage with your consumers. That is like super, super important. So I saw somewhere in the briefing panel something on customer centricity. Sorry, briefing document. I think the reason many of us exist, as actually any startup for that matter, is you're solving something with the customer. So the starting point is always, even in our space, the larger companies, their starting point would have also been solving for the consumer. The challenge is as you become larger, can the founder and the senior team can still be thinking about those problems? And I think at Noah, we've created that. We have this sort of unwritten policy where everyone in our leadership team talks to a consumer on a daily basis. We do talk in some way or the other. Maybe it's a social media exchange or whatever. But so that's for me the number 1 thing in consumer businesses for sure. Right? You got to be continuing to engage with them and keep learning. The second I think is a little bit of like hustle. Like you just so. When I was in ITC, a problem comes to you, you have enough time and resources all for it. But here you neither have the time nor the resources. And then you, like, I don't know, like it's like a little bit of jugaad, you try to figure out something and navigate and go through with that, right? But so I think these 2 things are very core in your early journey, like staying focused on the consumer problems and continue to learn from that, and definitely having the hustle to go out and execute, because as Apurva mentioned, that operational quotient is super important. Because you can have all of these ideas, if you can't go and execute it, actually means nothing.
So bias for action is very
Bias for action.
Yeah, tell us more. Can you tell us more a little more?
So I think not only founders, as investors, we are also talent scouts for our company. So we keep looking at amazing talent. So the number one thing which at least I like to look at is agency. And I define agency as extreme ownership and bias for action. Good founders or great founders will have very high bias for action, and speed often trumpets a lot of strategic thinking when you're building a company. Strategy can come in a little later, but we are looking for people who exhibit very, very high momentum. Like when they get into something, things start happening.
Got it. Absolutely. So again, going for that operational quotient in some sense, right? Getting stuff done.
Very required, yeah.
And I also like what you said in the beginning when you said that it's all about one-way energy transfer. It's kind of like building that entropy. This is great, wonderful. No, thank you so much for sharing again. And I'll come to you because we're talking about this, right? So you'll actually see now there is this flood of D2C brands that are coming into India. Like, in India, we're starting a lot of these new companies, to your point, last 10, 15 years, a lot of companies have been doing this. Now they're starting to mature, a lot of new companies are coming in. As an investor, how do you see this landscape evolving, this whole D2C landscape? Do you feel like we have too many? Do you feel like we're too little? Do you feel we're going at the right pace? Like, what do you see happening in this area? Like, what's your sense so far?
So I think India is really underpenetrated in terms of brands. Typically in a mature market, in a developed economy, in each category you will have between 400 to 1,000 brands. You take any category, whether it's coffee or sanitary pads, I think India is by and large underpenetrated. Underpenetrated not only in terms of access to population, like what percentage of the population has access to it, but also from route to market, number of stores which stock it, optionality for consumers. When a consumer walks into a modern trade or a GT, what are the options available? Options in terms of SKUs, pricing, method of delivery, massively underpenetrated. And as India's per capita income goes from $2,100 to $4,000-5,000 over the next 5-6 years, typically the tipping point is $1,780. After $1,780, it goes from roti kapda, phone recharge and Wi-Fi to discretionary spend. And that's where brands play a very important role. So fundamentally, I believe that DTC is an oxymoron because it really gives you a bad, it doesn't explain what founders are doing. You start distributing on Shopify or social media or whatever, but ultimately as you grow, you have to be wherever the consumer wants to access you. So most businesses are omni-channel. So leaving DTC aside, I think India is very conducive to build brands. The social signaling is very important for Indians. Like possibly there could be other business schools which are as good as ISB, but getting that ISB as a brand is very important for Indians. So we'll see many more brands. Typically when a founder starts, I don't think they're even thinking that there is a large competitor in or out. In most categories in India, you will have large competitors. So that's not how good founders think. They really like their chances and they're like, hey, we'll build this. Yeah.
It's very interesting. I think like Rage, you've seen it obviously grow. How has your strategy changed over time? Like I know like D2C, multiple channels, omni-channel, like how has this changed? Does this echo like what he was talking to us about, how as you grow, you need to stop thinking of yourself just as D2C and do more?
No, absolutely. I think, see, yesterday also, last night we were sitting with some of these students from one of your cohorts on entrepreneurship, and we had a long discussion, long chat on this, and I think D2C is just a channel, like it's just one channel of sales for you that is easy to start because of certain reasons. It's very difficult to scale because of certain reasons. But it's easy foot in the door. It's a good way to test if there is a market for what you're trying to do, if the pricing structures work, because the consumer is the same. We, sometimes as founders also, and sometimes there's just people who are just thrown with so much of garbage these days, like in content and all. We believe, like everybody believes there is a playbook, there is some blueprint, some model, some that I can copy. वो पूरा दिन वही ढूंढते रहते हैं. वो कौन सा मॉडल है वो मेरे को इस पॉडकास्ट ले लेंगे, यहाँ लगा देंगे. It's very, very simple. There is a product and there is a consumer in our business, or there is a service and there is a client. This product is needed by this consumer at this price point. If she buys at this price point, this is how much money I will make.
Yeah.
Now let me get to 100 customers without complicating anything. Maybe you are very good in general trade. Go out and sell to the consumer who's in the store. Why do you need to do D2C? Maybe you're very good as a 16-year-old selling to your schoolmates. Go and sell it to them. Or numerous such examples.
Yeah.
Or if you are, let's say, professional and you have a certain sort of leverage in your organization, go and sell it to your co-workers. You need to understand if there is a certain intent to purchase your product or your service. Now, direct to consumer happens to be one of the channels that is being utilized a lot these days. There is a consumer. This consumer can be anywhere. They can buy online, they can buy offline. So thankfully, I never thought, because I also went through almost 8-9 years of building. I started very early to be at a stage कि यार ये तो सब फैफ है. फैफ को साइड करो. धंधा बनाने के लिए आपको सबसे पहले कंज्यूमर चाहिए और पैसा चाहिए. कंज्यूमर सेम है. चैनल चेंज हो रहा है.
Right.
So if the channel is changing, how does one change with the changing times and changing ecosystem of channels? Quick commerce, for example, has disrupted retail already. It will continue to disrupt.
Right.
Was I prepared? Was the larger legacy companies prepared? No. So it
But you
doesn't
adapt.
matter. The consumer is the same. So my only advice is that, like to every founder always is, and great founders know this, they will not even talk about channel play initially. They will like, this is how much I've sold, this is where I sold it, I have scaled to 10,000 customers, these are the certain repeats, these are the cohorts of those repeats, the consumer is coming back after 1 year, 2 years, 1 month, whatever it is, and this is how much money we can eventually make because there is this large need for this product, and that's why I need your capital, or that's why I need to scale this business.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Great businesses and great founders, promoters have built businesses via cash flows.
Fair.
And if a business, at some point at least, it has to generate a healthy amount of cash flow so that they can scale that business.
Absolutely, at some point for sure. Yeah? No, wonderful. Thank you. We'll open it up for questions that you have before I kind of round it off with my last question. But any other questions you have, this is your opportunity to ask the questions. So please go ahead. Yes, sir. Please. We'll get you a mic. I think we'll get you a mic. Get your mic so others can hear your question as well. Here, I think we have a question in the first row to start with. Let's start from the first row. It's easier. I don't know if it's working. Is it working? Can you check?
Can we also get one mic towards the back? There's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
man there.
Is this fine now?
Yeah.
Let's get some mic to the back as well. Huh?
Thanks, Bharat. The wonderful speech of the speakers, especially. But one thing, basically, I works in last 25 years in AI space and different MNCs. I used to work actually. Okay. But I feel still India is not in a global stage for startups, because when only I was seeing only Tata brand is only a global brand right now. Especially for the global startups, especially, we are only focusing on only Indian business actually. Most of the brands what we building in India, it want to be successful in global actually. That's one of the pitch. We are many ways we are missing actually. Is there any suggestions can give that actually for that? How we can build a global brand? Then India will get a little bit competition is there, but where in outside selling prospect is very easy actually, because even Amazon CEO saying that next 10 years, the India space is a global space actually. As any startup, we want planning for one startup for traveling soon actually. The highway restaurant actually. So
I think there are many Indian startups in their own categories which are very global. Okay. For example, if you want to acquire any kind of satellite data, Pixel has a pretty global business. So when we think about brands and visibility, it has to be relevant and visible in its own category. You're largely referring to consumer visibility and consumer brands. Consumer brands in India going global is basically a 10-year, 15-year story. Before that, setting up a business, repatriating money, acquiring a company, all this was difficult, right? Even American brands have been built over 60, 70 years. So I think we need to give Indian entrepreneurs time, and we want to see incredible brands come out of India, which are global.
Awesome. Yeah. Why don't we take one from the end and we'll come to you, I promise. We'll take one from the back. Anyone who has a mic at the back?
Miko is another global brand. It's the leader in robotics for children. Globally sells, I think, 5-7 million robots for children. There are many such examples.
Yeah, go ahead please, right at the back.
Yes.
There. Yes.
So, since one of you are angel investors, one of you is an institutional investor, and both of you are entrepreneurs, I have a question basically. Which type of investor is suitable for which type of brand, and when to get the investors? Because as you just mentioned that you get sometimes startups which don't have a proper business model also, and they come and because you guys have an expertise, you help them also from time to time to build that model, and sometimes you get some startups which have a good financial model also with them. So when to get the investors and which type of investors to get is my question mainly.
Go ahead.
So I think when should you get an investor is when you need the money. So you should first be clear. I don't think you should start up and say, let me go and raise money and all that. So I think you should really know when do you really need the money and when do you need that money. That's the time. What kind of investors? There's a lot of work that you need to do to, so if a fund is going to invest only in AI, there's no point in a consumer brand really trying to reach out to them, or vice versa. So I think that requires a lot of diligence, research, talking to people in the ecosystem to see, which kind of investor would be interested in what you're building.
No, I'll give you this amazing learning that I've had about money, because you're saying about funding, right? So money, the more you chase it, the more it'll run away from you.
Yeah, totally.
So even when you want to desperately raise capital, the more you're in the market trying to raise capital to build, it's not possible. I think I'm not that lucky, never happened to me.
Yeah.
Most founders I know build the business and then attract the investors, but be very strategic about it. That's one. Number two, funding is over glamorized. So anywhere you read that this happened, that happened, because I think there's a lot of bombardment of all of that. If you really understand their stories and how their capital was, raised, or kind of just the early days since you were just starting out, you will see that there was one person who believed in them. There was this one angel who believed in them, and it was a good fit for them. So पैसा उसी से लो जिससे मजा आए पैसा लेने में starting में. That's my theory, and उसके बाद you should be able to build on top of it and go from there. But never raise money in desperation in the early days. I could have a very contrarian view on this, because I know people say whenever you get the money, be the first one to take it and all. I don't think that's the good strategy. It didn't work out for me.
Awesome. No, thank you. Let's see. Anyone else who has a question? Let's see. We'll take one at the back and we'll come to you, sir. So someone at the back, there's someone in the middle, the gentleman in the white shirt.
So my question is particularly about bootstrap startups, right? I happen to be associated with my better half has a D2C brand, so we know the struggles. The question is more on, we see it as a vicious circle of how much you spend in a D2C is how it comes, right? And when you're bootstrapped, how is the ecosystem at that level? I was speaking to somebody, they said that until unless you reach a 50 lakh or 1 crore, no angel investor will even touch you, right, per month. So how is the ecosystem in that where, people can come in to help the bootstrap if there is a conviction in the brand? Because most of the government schemes don't cover, they are typically a little more on agrarian or high-tech, AI, not consumer brand specifically.
So I think if you are at a 10, 15 lakh stage per month, you can always go and do a friends and family round. And as a founder, if you can't get 10, 15, 20 people you know to back you, that itself is a worrying sign. Because hopefully you're 19, 20 when you're starting, or maybe 23. In 19 years, you haven't built a network enough for 10 people to write out 5 lakh or 10 lakh rupee checks. That's a very worrying sign. So at that stage, I think friends and family is a good option. But if you're doing 40, 50 lakhs, I think there are enough pre-seed investors in India, syndicates, and other avenues to get investors to come.
Great. Just trying to look for anyone else's questions. So there, I think the lady at the back, right at the back, last row.
You're very democratic.
Sorry?
Very democratic.
No, I think there was someone right at the back, so I wanted to make sure they get their chance. Yes,
yeah.
please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I'm Rati. So my question specifically goes for Ravi sir. I wanted to ask, so Nua entered the market with a very differentiated presence focused around wellness, right? So how did you go around building that strong community presence first while you were just starting out in a very sensitive menstrual health industry, as well as second, I am building a lingerie brand as well, and I want to gain more clarity on how do you exactly crack that differentiator in a very crowded D2C market?
Community building.
Tough question.
Tough one.
Tough one. So we'll chat about it after this. But so I can now connect the dots with some of the things that the rest of the panel has mentioned, right? So we talked about DTC and stuff. So in my head, because I spent a lot of my first part of my career in a conventional, large, very successful FMCG company. I think what's happening right now is, the reason I strongly believe that, to echo what Apurva said, that we'll have a lot of brands coming up in the future, is because there is a little bit of democratization of capabilities that's happening, right? So, of course, there were days when you had the license Raj and you needed some manufacturing ke liye, you needed some stuff. A lot of large FMCGs have started moving towards outsourced manufacturing anyway, because it makes sense for them. So there is capacity available. So that part is sorted out. The second one was this whole question around media buying, right? Earlier you had to go through structured channels. Nothing came cheap, right? It had to be more expensive and stuff like that. I think that's where the social media comes in. So to answer your point on community building, when we started, we were fully bootstrapped, right? So we had no, we didn't have any money or anything like that. So we said, look, what's the cheapest way to get to the consumer? And that's where Instagram and all of those came into picture. So you can actually build your storytelling thing on Instagram, for example, or YouTube or whatever, right? The third part is distribution bit, and fully agree with what Bharat said, is that in a standard FMCG company, distribution is like a decade-long capability building exercise. It takes really a lot of time. So if 20 years ago a consumer guy came in to start a business, you would just imagine the difficulty just to get into one store and put your product. It's a lot of effort, and the return from that store is peanuts, right? It's too much effort to get there. True. But today you have some of these platforms that can just give you scale overnight. So a lot of these democratization is happening. You just need to figure out, whichever aspect you want to build on, just identify these trends that's going on. And I think we have a lot to thank for technology and internet and all of that stuff. We are consumer brands, but I'll tell you to one of the friends here, you know, I joke about this. Every morning, me and my team wake up and we pray to God for funding. But we hope Zepto and those guys raise money, right? Because
Makes sense.
it
Makes
really
sense.
helps us.
Makes sense.
We just say that because that way, we don't need too much capital.
Absolutely.
And they're doing some phenomenally good work,
Makes a lot of
disrupting.
sense.
So we say that every day wake up, pray that they raise money.
Yeah, all of them, but not one of them.
Not just one of them, all of them,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that there's
That's-
no
that's-
monopolization.
Absolutely. Democracy.
You don't want any one single one to become very large.
Yeah, yeah.
I'll give you one small statistics, okay? On one of these platforms, we have a 15% market share. We went to 0 to 15% market share in 1 year.
Wow.
In this category. And this is a category which is too difficult otherwise. 15% market share in 1 year.
How?
It couldn't have been possible because, yeah, I don't know, don't ask me, but they're doing something good.
Markdowns.
No, you're making money out of that.
No, fair
It's a
enough.
good markdown.
Yeah, good markdowns. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So the dynamics of a challenger brand versus the incumbents on these platforms kind of
Yeah.
help you sometimes, but it's also the pull of the customer.
Yeah, but adjacency makes a lot of sense. I mean, trying to find out who can you partner with and actually piggyback on in some sense, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So everybody's piggybacked on somebody. Uber piggybacked on Google
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
built a billion-dollar business.
Yeah.
So I think these are just kind of applications on top of underlying technologies.
Makes a lot of sense.
But to also just add, do one or two things right. Just don't do too much. Just maybe crack YouTube. Just crack it to the best of your abilities, or maybe just crack one channel. Don't try to do too much in the early days. Just to do one thing and do it really, really well, better
Yeah,
than anybody
fully
else
agree.
out there.
Focus, in some
Focus,
sense, focus is
yeah.
important is what you're saying. Great, awesome. No, thank you so much. Someone else, let's see. Yes, ma'am, we'll take on the right. Yes. Yeah, same row. Yeah, in the lane where our photographer is, yes.
Hello, I am Divya, and my question is to Bharat sir. So sir, it is like your entry into the beverage industry, and there are other competitors as well. So in this industry where everyone is coming up with instant coffee and it is very easily available, like the sachets come in 1 rupees, 2 rupee, whereas your product is in a way expensive for normal people, but still, how were you able to bring up that price point that okay, this is the price I'm going to sell my item, and still there are so many people who are still buying it, but how you identified that okay, this is going to be the price of the item I am going to sell and people are going to buy it. One beautiful thing about your product is the plant-based, so that is the USP you have. But do you think, is it because the USP that your price point is like valid, or you have like more marketing, or like how did you bring that thing?
I think she's asking why is it so expensive?
No, actually, I'm very happy to hear that because she's my premium customer, and she doesn't know that we have a lot of other mass market products, which keeps her at.
We
the
love it.
premium.
Yes.
But I'll tell you. See, the thing is, when we started, we obviously had a strategy in mind. What the strategy was to be at par or above the incumbents. It's a go-to-market strategy to appear more aspirational and appear more differentiated because you are, and in the mind of the consumer, it helps in getting your, especially to the consumers that we were selling to initially. Very quickly we diversified into other mass market products which are available only in select channels.
Right.
So the two things, right? There's product market fit and there's product market channel fit. So once you crack the product market fit, you have to crack the product market channel fit because all of your SKUs will not work in all of the channels. So for example, in a modern trade, D-Mart, we sell what we don't sell anywhere else at that scale, for example, or in a quick com, we would sell some of the other SKUs. Combinations of these are also important where we sell them. Let's say online we sell only a combination above a certain ASP and AOV. So my point is, by the way, we are the fourth player in the country to have a 2 rupee sachet, which you will probably never, which will not cross your hand, which I'll be very happy for. So, I mean, and we sold 15 lakh sachets last month about 1.5 million, and this is the, I think, what, 12th, 13th month. It's been a year we launched it.
Wonderful.
So the thing is, when the brand is aspirational and you are really doing things that are, for the consumer, right for the consumer, you will be able to pass on other products and other allied services to your consumer. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be like a discovery process for you also when you start it, because consumers will tell you that we want this at this price point and so on and so forth.
Got it. Thanks. We'll quickly wrap. I did promise this gentleman I'll come back to them, so why don't we take your last question and we'll close, okay? Thank you so much. No problem. I'm a man of my promise, man. Please.
So my question was mainly to sir, as he said, don't come through cold channels, as you said, and there are, for some people, there are no warm channel. How exactly we can cultivate warm channel in order to reach the venture funds and people who can invest?
So I didn't say don't come through cold channels. I said coming through cold channels makes it increasingly hard. You're actually minimizing your chances. And there's a very famous 6 degrees of separation theory. So you might not know me directly, but if you just research a little on Google, Instagram, Twitter, you'll know someone who will know me.
Yeah.
So the important thing is to find that person, get them excited about what you're building, and get them to introduce it.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. No, look, I just want to say thank you, and I'll quickly wrap this. So what was interesting is, as this was happening, I was taking some notes and I was drawing some pictures, and I realized we could actually draw out what I'm calling the journey of a startup from everything that you've spoken in some sense, right? So we started talking about what will you do when you're really pre-pre, if you will. And we said what's important for founders. We spoke about how OQ and PQ are things that I picked up, which is very fascinating for me. I also really love the concept of a one-way energy transfer when it happens right in the beginning. But I think what both of you said also resonated with me, where you said you need to truly care. You need to care about what you're talking about. You need to present that when you're talking to someone. You should really believe, right? So that's something that's kind of stood out in the pre-phase, if you will. In 0 to 1, you said it's great, now you have passion, but you need to really understand your customer very deeply. Like customer centricity kind of stood out for me. Be very close to your customer. And the second thing, I think both of you articulated and you said in some way, hustling is really important. You need to get stuff done, right? Yeah. So that's when you need to get stuff done. It's great, you have a great idea, but understand your customer, get stuff done. So that's 0 to 1. And as you're scaling, suddenly other things start to become important while customer stays the center. Now you're starting to talk about your channels, and will you only be D2C, will you go to other channels? And I love the example of others raising funds and you growing on top of them. It's going to stay with me for a very long time. But the importance of the ecosystem comes through as you're trying to scale, right? So it's not just about you now, you're trying to play the game with other people, and how are you going to exponentially scale? So that seems to be the scale strategy. But I also kind of resonated with what you said in terms of product market fit being really important when you're doing 0 to 1 in some sense and scaling. But as you continue to grow, your product market channel fit seems to also become really important. So it was very nicely put in terms of saying, first it's about the founder and the idea and what they care about and what they believe. But then all of that is grounded on customers, so keep the customers at the center, make sure you're continuing to deliver and show value. As you continue to show value, look at your multiple parts of the ecosystem and continue to grow, build the ecosystem and continue to grow your business by piggybacking on others. Don't forget about others and bring them along. And if you maybe do all of this, you could be a successful entrepreneur. Yeah?
There's a 1% chance.
There's a 1% chance.
Less than 1%, but 1% sounds nice.
Well, I'll take the 1%. It's only 4 things. If we do this, 1% is a great number. I'll take that number. But with that note, I will say thank you to all of them. You should give them a round of applause, please. Thank you so much for your time. Look, I know how hard it is for you to be here. I can only imagine the number of emails that you're probably getting for someone to fund you, and all of you as well. But thank you so much. I hope this is useful for all of you, and get ready for your next session. Thank you.